We dive into the Ravens Week 13 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers with a very special guest next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we return here with another episode of Locked On Ravens. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, and here with me today to break down the Ravens Week 13 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers on Purple Friday is former Ravens wide receiver, Super Bowl champion, Qadry Ismail. And Qadry, this Ravens team, before we talk about Week 13, Week 12, the Ravens picking up a 16-10 win over the Cleveland Browns, a hard-fought divisional game, as it seems like they always are. The heart is never still in watching the Ravens. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and what a game indeed. You talk about the holidays and Thanksgiving and, trying to stay focused and all that. I think the Ravens, yet again, when their backs up against the wall, somehow, some way, find a way to prove the naysayers wrong and come away with a strong division win.
Yeah, the Ravens, they haven't gotten off to the fast starts. They haven't blown out teams by 30 this season, but they're still getting the job done. 8-3 atop, not just the AFC North, but the whole AFC. I mean, I think when you talk about what this team went through from an injury perspective before the year, what they've gone through even during the year, 8-3 at the top of the AFC seems like one of the best case scenarios you could have for them through 12 weeks. But Qadry, starting off with this Browns game and how the Ravens were able to perform, the Ravens offense has struggled to a degree over the past 3 weeks. They've only scored one offensive touchdown in each of their last 3 games. And Lamar Jackson was the big talking point in this one. 4 interceptions thrown, the most in his NFL career in a single game. But the Ravens pull out the victory anyway. The defense played phenomenal. We'll talk about them in a couple minutes. But what would you expect, or what did you think that the Ravens were going to do against this Cleveland Browns team on offense? And then why do you think that the Ravens and Lamar Jackson kind of struggled a little bit? And what do you attribute those interceptions to? Was it Lamar Jackson maybe being a bit just overall rough from having to be out with an illness? Was it just he wasn't prepared? Was it the fact that the play calling wasn't there? What did you attribute those interceptions to?
Yeah, so I think going into the week, I thought this team was, okay, cool. We are, getting through this 3-game stretch. They had the tough go at it in Chicago. They come away with a phenomenal last few minutes in the fourth quarter victory. So now you move on to a division opponent. Look at what Cleveland has done. Cleveland is looking like world beaters one week, and then they look like, boy, what are you doing the next week? And I thought heading into this game, it was really important that, Lamar Jackson was back at, the quarterback position, that he was, taking full reps and feeling really good. The thing that I saw, though, was, yes, there is a rhythm. There is a timing to playing the position of quarterback. I remember my teammate Peyton Manning, when he would say, hey, if you miss, a practice, that was an equivalent of missing the first drive or first 2 drives of the game. If you miss multiple practices, it kind of continues to amplify as far as the drives are concerned. But when you miss a week or whatever, either illness or injury, that rust is real, and it takes a while to get it back. And I thought that was what Lamar was kind of going through, was just this rough patch of I'm seeing the defense do this, and my offense is supposed to do that, yet my brain is not matching up to what I'm seeing, and I'm just throwing the ball, and he wound up, having the 4 interceptions. By far his worst game of his career, especially from a turnover standpoint. But I do like the fact that, you still have Lamar, you still have Justin Tucker from a kicking aspect of things, and the Ravens, yet again, find a way to secure the victory.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable how this team continues to pull victories out and do it in really amazing fashion. Really, it seems like every other week they're doing it. But a side note there, Q, for Lamar Jackson's turnovers, we have seen him have a bit of an uptick this season, especially with the interceptions. His rookie season, there was a problem with the fumbles. His second and third years, there wasn't really that big of a turnover thing with him. He kind of got it under control. Are the turnovers this year concerning to you as the season goes on?
don't think they're necessarily concerning. Yeah, sure, the timing isn't the greatest. Um, I think that for Lamar, when you're listening to him and his pressers, he's taking ownership of it. It's not like he's ducking it or he's feeling some type of way. He's feeling like, yeah, I had 4 turnovers. This is something that I got to correct. I got to do better with. I like that. I like the fact that he's being confident with his mindset and being a lot more. Yeah, I got to be smarter with the football. I got to be smart about what I do when it comes to not put my team in a bad situation. And so I think moving forward, hopefully all the bad kind of got out of the way, and now we're in a position where, we can see Lamar Jackson being a lot more mature, a lot smarter. I'm not saying that he's immature in any stretch of imagination. What I'm saying is that he's learned from his mistakes and he's been able to, utilize that and help himself be an even better quarterback.
Yeah, and I also, to your point, he is somebody who does not throw anybody under the bus. He's not saying, "Oh, Mark Andrews should have gone this way." You know what? No, he takes the blame. He understands he needs to play better, and the 4 interceptions is, 1, usually not going to win your football games, and 2, it's just, for his standards, it's not acceptable. For any quarterback standards, not acceptable. But also, I think context is important with these interceptions. I think we've seen time and time again where, for example, like Willie Snead a couple years ago, tipping the ball up in the air and it's picked off. Or in this game in particular, Rashad Bateman coming across the middle, gets his hands on the football, the ball's tipped in the air. So I'm not saying that all these throws were just solely on Lamar Jackson and like it's all his fault. But at the same time, there were some of those where it was just like a bad read or he wasn't reading the defense well. And I think it does come back to the rust factor you're talking about there, Q, with him. But also, Q, the run game for this team, it seems to be Lamar Jackson. And we've been talking about it for a little while where the running backs, Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman, this isn't prime Devonta Freeman, prime Latavius Murray. They can pick up 3 yards when you need 3 or 5 yards when you need 4, but they're not going to break for 15, 20 yards every single play. Something that in their offense, we were used to seeing with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. So moving forward, is the run game any concern to you, especially as this team kind of makes a playoff run and is in the playoffs potentially, that they need to get that started? The big plays have to start coming, or is it just what it is right now?
It is what it is. I don't think you can change this late in the season and now all of a sudden find the magic formula. I think, sure, you can say it from a coach speak aspect. Oh, this is our week. Oh, we have a good scheme. And, oh, this defense is not a very good defense against the run. Even when they're not against a good defense against the run, for example, when they played the Chargers, they've had some big runs, but you didn't have these dynamic, ballistic, oh my gosh, take it to the house type of a run. I think it is going to be the Lamar Jackson big play machine that gets them going in the running game. I think it's about being on schedule. Being on schedule is being productive enough on first down, 6-7 yards. If you're fortunate, that second down, if you do a quick game, you got to be on target. That'll give you a chance to pick up an easy first down. Otherwise, you got to be in 3rd and short, and that's where the playbook can be opened up. You can do a lot of different things. That big play, beautiful running aspect that we would have seen with J.K. and Gus Edwards, you're just not walking through that door. So we just can't put that pressure on Devontae. We can't put that pressure on Latavius. We got to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is number 8 is going to be your guy when it comes to manufacturing big plays. It's interesting because you and I we talk shop and talking all things football. One of the things I think we keep touching upon is the fact that for Lamar, the symmetry and the chemistry that he has with Greg Roman, it's Greg's run blocking scheme that meets Lamar Jackson's talent. But when you have other backs in there, it totally shuts down an aggressive defense and causes you to read and look and see where everything is coming from. You just don't have that this year, so it's a little bit different. And I even saw earlier where they were talking about Devin Duvernay getting even more potential carries because he has this explosive ability at a 13-yard run that you swore was like 50 because you hadn't seen it in a while. And so I think that the more creative they can be, utilizing some of their speed, talent, and Duvernay, I think that that's going to help them.
Yeah, it certainly will. And I think for Duvernay in particular, a lot of teams, they don't unveil their whole playbook in week one, right? They have those plays they're saving or they're coming up with and saving for these games late in the season that we just haven't seen yet. And so some of those dynamic plays with Devin Duvernay, with some of these other players, maybe we see Marquise Brown get involved, maybe someone else. But they have to find different ways to make up for what Dobbins and Edwards brought to this offense that they just don't have anymore. And it's a bit disappointing because I know so many people were expecting J.K. Dobbins to have this huge second season. Gus Edwards continues to improve every year. But again, I agree with you, Q. They're working with what they're working with, and that's just what it is at this point in the year. But moving on to the defense, this Ravens defense has been incredible over the past 3 weeks. 1 offensive touchdown allowed in each of their last 3 games. And in Cleveland, they did not have Calais Campbell, who has arguably been their best run defender this season. They're going up against the best rushing offense in the NFL. They hold him to under 3 yards a carry. They hold Nick Chubb to 2 yards a carry. I mean, without Calais Campbell, they have guys like Brandon Williams stepping up just in that week 8. How impressed were you with how well this run defense performed in week 12?
I was thoroughly impressed. And the guy that, we need to give flowers to is, I know we're talking defensive front, but how about Tyus Bowser? How about the way he's played in just the last few weeks? Making impact plays and turning the, tide of the game around by tackling Justin Fields and stripping the ball away from him. Coming back against Cleveland and really the last, 3 plays he closed out the game. That's kind of like playing like a Raven that we've been accustomed to seeing for years when it comes to, a defensive-minded football team. I thought Brandon Williams, when it comes to fit, when I say fit, it's how you are going to address an offensive line's blocking scheme as a defender and keeping your shoulders square and not letting them get turned. The moment you get them turned, and I remember the late, great Clarence Brooks, who was phenomenal defensive line coach, he would tell me one of the things that made his defensive front so good and so dependable, and you had great players like a Haloti Ngata, was the fact that they never got their shoulders turned, and so it was hard to get up the field and run the ball. And I thought Brandon and company just did a great job of being aggressive, seeing and trusting their technique, and not being out of position, which allowed for like a Tyus Bowser to come up, play as well as he did, show that, hey, look, we are strong when we play well together, knowing our assignment. So, good stuff by this defense as far as, continually. It's not pretty, but very much tip of the cap to the way they've been able to play.
Yeah, and this run defense has turned into one of the best run-stuffing units in the NFL. They've done it with Campbell. They've shown they can do it without Campbell. So it's not just one player, right? This is a whole team effort that they can go in with and say, you know what, we're down one of our guys, but we can still go out there and hold one of these best rushing offenses in the NFL and really make, in this case, the Browns offense very one-dimensional with an injured quarterback, which just played to their advantage even more. But we'll head into our first break. We'll make it back. We'll be flipping and talking about the Ravens Week 13 matchup with the Steelers and previewing it from the Ravens offense perspective. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back. You listen to podcasts with the power of knowledge. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone so you can listen to all the latest episodes. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line so your family can harness all that brain power too. And the power of one of America's largest 5G networks so you can do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money you'll save and all the knowledge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become. Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile. Free phone limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers coverage not available everywhere or for all phones network. See boostmobile.com for details. This holiday season, grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar or even better than a candy bar in Built Bar. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There are so many flavors you'll have a hard time choosing. Or you have raspberry and mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, or cookies and cream and peanut butter brownie. Built Bar gives you that extra feel you need to bust down those mall doors. Or if you're standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something to keep you going. People are so passionate about their favorite flavor, they'll fight for it and things could get out of hand. Santa told me to tell you to throw a few Built Bars in those stockings. So many flavors, they'd make anyone's Christmas shopping a happy one. Dip your Built Bar into a piping hot cup of cocoa or let it melt a little and give your beverage a bit of that Built Bar flavor. Do you feel like some of those marshmallow treats around the holidays? You need to get your hands on the Built Bar Puffs. They're light, fluffy, and marshmallowy through and through. So go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your order. We return here. It's our second segment of this Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oshek, your host, still here with Qadry Ismail. And Qadry, this Ravens team going up to Heinz Field, playing these Pittsburgh Steelers, another divisional matchup. We're talking about sometimes, when is this team going to get the blowout win? I don't know if it's coming anytime soon.
I just want to say this is Steelers week, and every week when it's Steelers week, or every year when it's Steelers week, my thinking is, okay, like throw every record of what, who, why, when out the window. I don't care if you're playing bad or they're playing bad. I mean, my goodness, man, it doesn't matter from an injury standpoint. It is always a tight game. It's always coming down to who blinks first. There's going to be some hard hits. Even though the names on the back of the jersey over the years have changed, it's amazing that the legacy of the teams continue to move forward. I love it. I love how Alejandro Villanueva, he's going to be, going up against his old teammate. And, he has a tremendous amount of respect for them on the other side. But, yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm on this side now. I want to win. I love the fact that, you got a young guy in my mind and Tyus Bowser, but he's like, yeah, some of these young guys don't know what it is like to be at Steelers week. So the fact that he was talking about it, you just know, it's a different week. It's a different feel. And I don't care what, it looked like as far as Pittsburgh and literally getting their butts handed to them handily by the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, that was a butt whooping, and to be honest with you, I didn't expect it to be that fierce. But kudos to the Bengals, one, but number two, okay, and throw it all out the window. Here comes Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and one of my favorite clips from at least the Ravens practice that the social media team there has posted, and they do a great job, is I can't remember whether it's Pernell McPhee or whether it was Ed Reed. It was one of them. And one of the Ravens was wearing a yellow, just practice jersey. And someone said, whether it was McPhee or Reed, he's like, I hate that color. Like, this is Steelers week. Like, this is what it is. And for this team, for these two teams, the rivalry is so well known. I think it's the best in football, at least one of them by far. And these two teams, I agree, every single game for them, it doesn't matter who's doing well, who's not doing well. These are usually very close games, very highly contested games. Some great moments have come out of them, some heartbreak, some triumph for this Ravens team, and I think it's going to be another one of them. But for this offense, Q, you have a quarterback in Lamar Jackson who it's very arguable to say that he has struggled the most versus any one team. If you could say, hey, Lamar Jackson struggled against this team, Pittsburgh has been that team that he's really had a lot of struggles against over his NFL career. The last time he played against Pittsburgh was at M&T Bank Stadium. He didn't play in the, some people called it the COVID Bowl because they had 17 injured. They had 17 guys on the COVID list in that game, another 10 on injured reserve. They were depleted. They almost pulled out that win too, 19-14 loss. But coming off of 4 interceptions, Q, sometimes a quarterback's mental isn't right after that, but it seems like Lamar Jackson's very strong in that aspect. He said, he lets it fester and then he gets to the next week. So do you expect a bounce back performance from him against the team that he struggled against so far in his career?
Yeah. I remember when the Ravens traveled to Pittsburgh, and you're right, he did have his struggles. It's interesting though, because as much as he struggled, he still was able to, be the Lamar Jackson that the league was being introduced to. I think when we saw him last against Pittsburgh, and the one you're referencing at home, yeah, starting it off with a pick six and then having to rebound. And I know TJ Watt and company, they just literally, they were like, we're getting after him. We're going to go up the field and get in his face and dare him to either hold the ball okay, we're going to tackle you and you're going to feel it, or you're going to try to get rid of the ball and we're going to touch you up a little bit. So I think for him, it's good that he had this bad of a game, because I think there's a determination factor that makes him so special. And I think that he will bounce back. We've seen it, obviously, from a playoff standpoint, reference back Tennessee. And I think that is where Lamar, because Cincinnati thoroughly whooped up on Pittsburgh, you can't necessarily say, well, if I'm Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh fan, but anyway, I digress. If they are saying, oh man, this is a good, get back in the conversation game, against our hated rival in the Ravens. I think for Lamar, it's, I am all out for my redemption. I'm going to play extremely well. Let's go get this. I think for the Ravens defense, it's, hey, Pittsburgh is reeling right now. This is a great opportunity for us to stack another game in our favor when it comes to the way we played. Sure, you had the loss against Miami, but the defense showed up. You had the loss, obviously, or the win, against the Bears defense. You don't get back in the game if it's not for the defense. And then obviously last week against Cleveland, where that game would have, and all the other things, been a Cleveland Brown type of game to win and steal a victory. They couldn't get it done. So kudos to the defense, and I think that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing when it comes to moving forward and looking to this great matchup against the Steelers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a game that I think is going to be such a good one, and one that the Ravens can potentially take advantage of a Steelers team that isn't playing particularly well at this time. And part of that is on the defensive side of the ball for them. They are the second worst rushing defense in terms of net yards per attempt. In terms of pass yards through the air allowed, they're also struggling a little bit. They're kind of a mediocre to bottom tier unit. They're 19th in terms of net yards per attempt allowed. So talking about this receiving core, assuming everybody's healthy on the field, everybody's good, this could be a big game for potentially a Mark Andrews, because you see the Pittsburgh linebacker crew struggling a little bit. Maybe you get Rashad Bateman's first touchdown. We've been talking about it ever since he got on the field. When is Rashad Bateman scoring this first touchdown? Do you expect a big game, like a very big game by any of these Baltimore receivers, or do you think it will be another well-balanced effort? Because Lamar Jackson has been spreading the ball out really well over the course of this year.
Yeah, it's interesting when they choose to feature Lamar's tight ends compared to when they will give a strong burn to, say, a Marquise Brown, or, oh, wow, now it's Bateman's turn, or, gosh, let's get Sammy Watkins involved. Obviously, the Chicago game, he makes the critical catch at the end of the game. It's interesting, Kevin. I think when it comes to it, I will say from a matchup aspect of things, it's whether or not you get the favorable matchup, and then you keep feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. And so that is where I'm like, all right, you got some injuries. Clearly, if you look at the Cincinnati film, and I don't know if, Minka Fitzpatrick, how healthy or available he's going to be. I know Joe Hayden was out. So there were some key pieces that were out that I think if they aren't all 100%, I would absolutely attack them on the outside.
Yeah, and with the Ravens, this is the best core Lamar Jackson has had to throw the football to. And I know for the past couple of years, we've really seen like, all right, a team's going to take away Marquise Brown or take away Mark Andrews, and then it's going to be like a huge game for Brown, huge game for Andrews, but there aren't other guys who are there to step up. Like, no disrespect to Willie Snead, no disrespect to any of those guys, but they're not a player like Rashad Bateman is right now, who has come into this offense, has immediately become one of Lamar Jackson's favorites. He's a chain mover, has shown good hands. And this core for him is one that he can trust and just be a lot more comfortable in the pocket. And so if you can attack Pittsburgh on the outside, as you talked about there, Q, I think you could see a really, really nice bounce back performance for Jackson in a big game by a couple of these receiving options, especially against a Pittsburgh defense that just hasn't been up to their standards over the last couple of seasons, all things considered. We'll head into our final break, though. When we get back, we'll be flipping the field and talking about the Ravens defense in this matchup with Pittsburgh. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be back soon. BetOnline, as you covered all season, with more props, odds, and last than ever before, as football season continues to march into the playoffs. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. So wait, take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We return here, our final segment of this Purple Friday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher is still here with Qadry Ismail. And Qadry, the Ravens defense has played great over the past 3 weeks. They've allowed just 4 total touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. And look, they're playing Miami and Chicago and Cleveland, so it's not like these are the best offenses in the NFL, but you can only play who's in front of you, and they've done a great job of doing that. So now against the Pittsburgh offense that, I mean, has really struggled this season. You know, the stats on it, they're the 29th best rushing team. They're averaging just 3.7 yards per carry. They're also the 26th best passing offense in terms of net yards per attempt, just 5.7 through the air. But let's start with that passing offense in Pittsburgh and with Ben Roethlisberger. Because, I would be shocked if it's not Ben Roethlisberger's last year this season.
Yeah.
He's lost some of the mobility. He's lost some of the arm strength. You know, this Pittsburgh offense, we've seen it's kind of dink and dunk. Would you attack Ben Roethlisberger with pressure? Because obviously that's Don Martindale's MO. They're not going to necessarily shy away from that. But if you're the Ravens, do you want to get that pressure on Roethlisberger early, or do you want to kind of commit more to guys like Claypool and Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth and just bet on Ben Roethlisberger not being able to beat you with his arm?
You know what? I would hesitate to just be free reign because when you get rid of the ball quick, you know, you're putting a lot of pressure on your defensive backs to tackle. Not saying that we have witnessed some bad tackling, but we've missed some missed tackles that we've witnessed. And if you look at the Chicago game, I'm sure they're looking at the Chicago game saying, oh, homeboy went 60 off of a little quick pass. I think we can put some of that into play. So, yeah, no, I'm not ready to just say be all out aggressive against Ben Roethlisberger. I think he still has enough moxie. Again, this is a huge rival game. He can get it out. And when he does get it out, it's about, hey, I know where I need to go, whether it is Johnson or whether it is Claypool. Johnson gets targeted an awful lot. And so you know he has strong run after catch. I don't trust being aggressive for the sake of being aggressive. Najee Harris, he's, you know, very capable, very, you know, elusive. He can get some things going in the passing game as well out of the backfield. Let's pump the brakes as far as the overall aggressiveness and, you know, put yourselves in position where Ben has to be perfect. That's where I think you can capitalize and get Ben Roethlisberger, just because he's just not the same guy that you've been accustomed to seeing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, you know, there are ways to beat the Steelers team. There are more of them this season because of the way that Roethlisberger's played. They're missing Juju Smith-Schuster a little bit as well. The offensive line isn't amazing for them this season. So if you can get pressure with 4 or 5 and not have to blitz all the time, and then kind of work in those corner blitzes and kind of make them uncomfortable, especially with a short passing game, one of the best ways to beat a blitzing defense is with the short passing game. So I think if Pittsburgh realizes that, if Baltimore's blitzing, they're doing cover 0, whatever they're doing, then they could say, hey, we're just going to throw those screen passes to Deontay Johnson and just let him work in open space, because there are going to be 2 guys there and we'll have 4 blockers out in front. So those are the types of areas where I think if the Ravens can get pressure early with 4 or 5, it can really establish a tone. But Q, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how you think Baltimore might match up their corners with these Pittsburgh receivers, because you could make an argument that, hey, look, Deontay Johnson's this team's best wide receiver. Marlon Humphrey's the Ravens' best corner. So let's match him up. Let's have him travel, and that'll be that. But we did see in week 5, Anthony Averett have his worst game against Michael Pittman, who was a much bigger receiver than he was. You have Chase Claypool on Pittsburgh, who is a very big receiver, very good at contested catches. So do you see any scenario where the Ravens could potentially opt to put Humphrey on Claypool? The return of Jimmy Smith could be big as well, depending on how much he plays, because you could match him up with Freiermuth as a tight end, because the Ravens seem to love him in that role. How do you see these Ravens corners matching up with these Pittsburgh wide receivers?
Yeah, so if you look at the quick game, you got to have some savviness to you. I'm sure they're probably going to, line up inside edge of the receiver, not allow him just to get that, good, quick, easy release to the inside, make Ben Roethlisberger, throw it and use up some of his arm. I don't know. I think you could see a change-up where, yes, we're going to start with maybe a matchup on Johnson and see if Marlon, how he fares with it. I do know that he's not afraid and not going to be one of those guys that shy away from another team's, big play threat. He's not the quickest per se, so I don't necessarily know if the matchup is where you're saying talent to talent is favorable. He's a very physical guy, no question about it. So that's why I'm thinking maybe if there's a matchup, he would go to Claypool. And I think Anthony Averett is that quick guy, but he has to be technique sound. I'm like, screw it. Bring down some help from the secondary. Bring some safety help, double up on Johnson, and let Marlon have his way on the backside with Claypool. That's how I would look at it.
Yeah, and it's definitely an easy way to see it. I agree with you, Q, where, you get the physical player matched up with the physical player, and you play to those strengths. And then you have Averett on Johnson, who he can kind of match that speed a little bit. And even, you could throw Chris Westry in there, who is very, very raw. He's very raw, but, has the size, has the speed. Can he do some stuff? Potentially. But look, I'm trusting Marlon Humphrey and Anthony Averett over Chris Westry for sure. But Q, for predictions for this game, I remember we talked last week and you said, look, it's very important that the Ravens go 3-0 in this stretch here, the Cleveland stretch. Well, the Ravens are 1-0. They travel to Heinz Field now with that win over Cleveland under their belt. Do you see a third straight victory for this Ravens team dating back to week 11?
Yeah, I do. I think this is something that is important for playoff implications. Win your division, doesn't really matter as far as the other games, but you win your division, take care of business there. Now you control your own destiny. The Ravens right now are in the number one spot. I know that comes with a lot of cachet, especially with the extra week in the season. And then the way the playoffs, there's a new structure that's going to be implemented. So that's something to take into consideration. With that said, I think this game is a game in which Pittsburgh has struggled. You take advantage of a wounded animal and you don't give it hope. You got to be able to get out there and play fast. Now, I would love to see him again, get on the first drive and, score. They haven't done it. We get it. We understand it. I think what they're averaging, this is so funny because in the Lamar Jackson era, we're spoiled. Oh, they're only averaging 24 points a game because we're used to them averaging close to 30 and sometimes over 30 in his tenure as the starting quarterback. So, yeah, we want this team to be a high-functioning team early on and put the women and children to bed, meaning Ben Roethlisberger and company, they have no hope. So that's something that is going to be really interesting to see. How quickly can they capture momentum in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, and, Q, you could argue almost that this game is for Pittsburgh's season because they came off of a brutal division loss to Cincinnati last week, where they're already reeling in that area. You add another loss to their record in general, plus another division loss, come playoff time in a division that, if Cleveland somehow picks it up and they get over their injuries and Baker Mayfield starts playing, we could potentially see a division that has 3 teams in the playoffs, 4 teams in the playoffs. But at the same time, if Pittsburgh loses this game, they drop to 5-6-1. And, how much can you do with that record? I'm not entirely sure. But, I agree. I saw the Ravens sweeping Pittsburgh before this year started. I am still on that train. I just think with the way Ben Roethlisberger is playing, the Pittsburgh Steelers are really beat up on the defensive line as well. So maybe this is a game where we see 1 or 2 big runs from the running backs, but maybe not. I think that this will be a physical game. It'll be a close game. You know, the Ravens, they haven't made it easy for their fans this year in terms of the 30-point, 40-point blowouts. You know, the heart is always beating fast till the clock hits zero. But I do think that, you know, this is one of the best rivalries in the NFL. You see it each and every time these two teams match up. You throw everything out the windows you talked about in terms of records and stats. I'm going to unconventional final score. I'm going to say 24-18, like super, super unconventional. I think this is a game that Lamar Jackson does have a bounce back performance, but not like, hey, I'm throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. It's, you know what? I'm more efficient with the football. I'm keeping it safe. I'm not turning it over. And I think that's where you can see improvement in his game. Lamar Jackson's not a quarterback who throws 4 interceptions in contests. It's just not what he does. So I think the Ravens pull out a victory here. I think they go 2-0 over the last 2 divisional games and head into week 14 against Cleveland with a very big momentum swing in their favor. But Q, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show once again. And hopefully we'll be talking again. This Ravens team will be 9-3 in the top of the AFC, continuing that stretch in week 14. Again, a big thanks to Qadry for stopping by on the show, talking some Ravens football. This should be a very good Week 13 matchup between the Ravens and the Steelers. It is Steelers week after all, and those games are usually very exciting. That's all that I have for you today here, though, on Locked On Ravens. When we get back here on Monday after our 2-day break, we'll be diving into everything relating to the Ravens Week 13 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you on Monday.